Hello guys, Mr. Agophobia here. Hope you're doing well. Today I've made a build for the global event Hollywood. If you didn't know guys, recently they've changed the global event. So Hollywood, I'll put it on the screen now. They've made it triple explosion range, triple explosion damage, fixed explosion VFX, so like the look of the explosions. Explosions generate signature ammo and grenades at the player's location, and I've made a really good build based around the specializations. The grenade launcher specifically because it's explosions. You could use the technician technically, but I never expected that I'd be making a build with tip of the spear guys. Yeah, you heard, tip of the spear. But if you like my content guys, like and subscribe, and let's get straight into the video. So our first piece of gear is a tip of the spear mask. 2 piece gives us 20% signature weapon damage, that's what we'll be using 80% of the time. 3 pieces 10% weapon damage, which is always helpful. 4 pieces aggressive recon, getting a signature weapon kill gives 15% signature weapon damage for 10 seconds and 25% reload speed for the next reload of the weapon. The bonuses do not stack. Automatically generate signature weapon ammo every 60 seconds. That always helps with this global event. And you get kills with your signature weapon, you'll get ammo as well. But the core attribute is 15% weapon damage, 12% critical hit damage, and the mod is 6% critical hit chance. So our second piece of tip of the spear are the gloves. The core attribute is 14.5% weapon damage. The attribute is 12% critical hit damage. Our final piece of tip of the spear is the third piece because we're using the ninja backpack guys. Core attribute is 15% weapon damage. The attribute is 12% critical hit damage. So let's quickly go over the backpack, the ninja bike, and describe and show you how it works for new players. But this is the exotic ninja bike messenger backpack. It gives you all 3 cores, 15% weapon damage, blue core and a skill tier, which is always helpful. Attribute is 6% critical hit chance, and the talent is resourceful. Slots in with any equipped gear set and or brand set item to fulfill a requirement towards unlocking a gear set's bonus. Can unlock bonuses from multiple sets simultaneously. Say I put 1 piece of tip of the spear on, it will unlock the 2 piece that it says here, 20% signature weapon. So I've only got 3 pieces of tip of the spear equipped, and that gives me aggressive recon. So that's how ninja bike works. But our next piece of gear is the holster, Brazos, the named Picaro's holster, and we have just this one Brazos piece, so we get 10% skill haste, and because of ninja we get a skill tier, so we have 2 skill tiers. The core attribute is blue. Attributes are 12% critical hit damage and 15% weapon damage, which is good. Our chest piece, we are using Grupo Sombra, and we're using ninja as well, so we get 15% critical hit damage and we get 20% explosive damage, which is good for this global event because like I said, they've tripled the explosion damage, and you get explosion damage from your specialization and obviously from the Grupo, 20% explosive damage. Core attributes is 15% weapon damage, 6% critical hit chance, 12% critical hit damage, and the mod is 12% critical hit damage. Obliterate guys, critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, stacks up to 25 times. So the weapon that I decided to use, most people will have this gun, but if you don't have this gun there's an alternative. But I'm using the Ravenous exotic rifle. You can only get this from the Iron Horse raid, unfortunately guys, but if you don't, use the exotic Merciless because the talent on that gun is explosions, so that'll work as well. But the core attribute is 15% rifle damage, 17% critical hit damage, and 10% damage targets that will cover. And the reason I'm using the Ravenous is because it does a load of explosions, like I'll read the talent for you now. On trigger pull, fire both barrels at once. When fired from right shoulder, hits add offensive primers, and defensive primers when fired from the left shoulder. Hits from one shoulder will detonate the opposite shoulder's primers when present. When detonated, Each offensive primer deals 100% weapon damage, while each offensive primer grants 54% bonus armor and 10% amplified damage to armor plates for 5 seconds, which is good for heavy gunners and light chunkers. Primer effectiveness is doubled at 10 stacks, so basically if you shoot them normally, guys, 5 times and then swap to your other shoulder, it will make an explosion which will trigger the Hollywood protective defense system on the enemies. So it will trigger the big explosion and blow everyone else up around them. So that's always helpful. And you'll have your skills, what will blow the enemies up, and you'll have your specialization. And obviously you get the bonus armor, which is always helpful as well. But if you don't have the Ravenous, I'd recommend using the Merciless, because after several shots it does a big explosion. The second gun that I'm using is an SMG, the named version of the Vector, the Dark Winter. You can only get this from the Dark Zone, guys, and the named caches. I have 15% SMG damage, 21% critical hit chance, and attribute is 10% critical damage. I'd recommend changing that to damage target settle cover, but I don't have the gun for that. But the talent is Perfect Killer. Killing an enemy with a critical hit grants 50% critical hit damage for 10 seconds. This is good, guys, because we have around about 150% crit damage anyway, and then 50% it will go to around 200%. And those are the mods that I have. And then the pistol I'm using is the D50. You won't use your pistol at all. 15% pistol damage, 6% damage to armor, and the talent I have is Preservation. Killing an enemy repairs 10% armor over 5 seconds. Headshots give you another 10%, so 20% armor kill, basically. So the first skill that I'm using is the Crusader Ballistic Shield, guys, with tier 4, because we get a skill tier and a blue core from the Ninja Bike. We get a blue and a skill tier from the Picaro's holster, because a Ninja, 2 pieces, the skill tier and its blue core default. And those are the mods that I'm using. The second skill that I'm using, specifically for explosions, to trigger the explosions in the global event, is the Cluster Seeker Mines. Because we're tier 2, 1 from the backpack and 1 from the holster, we have 6 number of mines, it says there. We have 6 cluster mines that will go out and blow all the enemies up, which will trigger the explosions, and it will give you specialization ammo, which is good. Those are the mods that I have as well. So this is the overall build, guys. I never thought I'd be using Tip of the Spear ever, because it's not a very good gear set, just period. It never really has been. It was decent before it got changed for legendary content if you knew how to do it with the signature sniper rifle, but not anymore really. But I'm using a Ninja 3-piece Tip of the Spear, so you'll get the 4th piece, aggressive recon, so you'll get more signature weapon damage. Using the Picaros because you get a blue core, a red core, and a skill tier basically because of Ninja. Using Grupo because you get 20% explosive damage, that's always helpful. Obliterate, guys, critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, stacks up to 25 times. That's good because we have basically max crit chance and high crit damage. So that's the build, guys. I'm using the Ravenous. If you don't have the Ravenous, use the Merciless for the damage explosion, so it triggers the defense system they have, because they're glowing orange. And then I have the Dark Winter, Perfect Killer, more crit damage, and then the clusters to trigger the explosions as well, guys. I'll show you the stats now. So the rifle, the crit chance is pretty low, 33%, 154% critical damage, but all you want from this weapon is the explosions. That's it. And then the Vector I'm using is 59% critical hit chance and 147% critical hit damage, which you get the talent as well. For a kill you'll be at 197% critical hit damage, which is a lot of damage. And then the pistol, those are the stats as well, but you'll never be using this. And then the signature weapon, we get 3.1 million, like you see, and it does loads of damage. You'll see in the gameplay in the background, but it does a lot of damage. And I'll scroll down the rest of the stats for you.
Airborne toxins at unsafe levels. Sensors failing.
So the specialization we're using with this build is the Demolitionist, because of you get the grenade launcher with this. You could change the build, guys. It's just a template, remember, so you could use the crossbow that does explosions. You could use the technician that like locks onto enemies and does explosions as well. That's completely up to you, but I like the grenade launcher more. The reason we're using this is because we get 10% increased explosive damage, so we have 30% explosive damage because we get 20% from Grupo, guys. For the skills, we get the mortar turret. You could replace your shield for the mortar. That'll do explosions as well, but I like to have the shield. If you're in a group, you give your team members 5% damage to target cell cover, and then we have 15% SMG damage. We get the small laser pointer as well. We get 15% increased sidearm damage, and 15% increased rifle damage for the Ravenous or the Merciless if you want to use that. And we get loads of 40% increased signature weapon damage as well, which is always good. But this is the build that I made for this global event, guys. I never thought I'd be putting this build together, but surprise, surprise, it's actually pretty decent. But let me know in the comments, guys, what you think of this build, like tip of the spear. But thanks for watching, guys, and happy hunting.